Hello everyone, Namaste. So, in this video, I want to talk about how to deal with negative thoughts, emotions, feelings. If there is a negative thought pattern that is repeating itself, how do you deal with it and how do you break it? So, negative thoughts can become a pattern for each one of us, and they can trigger all sorts of responses, including anxiety, stress, depression. So, let's try and understand the cycle of thought patterns first. So, if we introspect, we will see that thoughts which come up from some unknown source, from a subconscious reservoir of tendencies. We have a storehouse of tendencies and traces, or mental impressions, or psychological imprints. So it's something that is bubbling from within, which might or might not be caused by anything in the world outside. So they use a specific term for this in yogic, and it's called samskara. And samskaras are basically the traces that are left in the subconscious mind by our past actions, past language, what we say, and past thoughts. So what they do is they leave traces in our mind, especially if they are repeated again and again. And the sanskaras or tendencies just bubble up and then they become conscious thoughts. So the yogic term for that is called vritti, which means modifications of mind or mental modifications. So I'll give you an example. So there's this bubble that just like comes up from the bottom of the lake. And once that bubble comes up to the surface of the lake, it creates a wave, a ripple. And this bubble is basically sanskara, and then the wave it creates on the surface is vritti. So the mind is like a lake. A wave comes up in the lake, a thought, a desire, anger, resentment, guilt, or just some random memory surfaces suddenly out of nowhere. So if you entertain these vrittis or mental modifications for long enough, what happens is it sinks back into the subconscious mind reservoir and becomes a sanskara. So you see the cycle. Sanskaras or tendencies bubble up and come up as vrittis or mental modifications. It then dwells on the surface of the mind, especially if you act upon it. If thought comes up and let's say you express it in speech and action, then that thought gets strengthened and it sinks back again. It seems to go away from the mind after a while. So think of a fearsome rage or depression. It goes away, but it never disappears. It goes back into the storehouse of tendencies, where it strengthens the existing tendencies or it creates a new one. And then this cycle of tendencies and mental modification, or the cycle of sanskaras and vrittis, just goes on unceasingly, day and night, in our waking moments and dreams. Now, because of the way we have led our lives, not carefully, not mindfully, a lot of negative stuff has gone into our minds. We are so careful of what we eat. We would not go to a dumpster and, we will put our hand in there and, bring out the food and eat the rotten food. Our tummy will be upset immediately. But we do that with our minds. We take things from the world indiscriminately. We dump things into our minds until it becomes a mental dumpster. So no wonder mind is full of negativities. So what do you do about it? Because this cycle is continuously repeating. And if you think about it, normally we don't do anything about it. It's like a computer. When you switch on your computer, we have this, it has this default mode. So whatever is programmed, it will start. So exactly like that, whatever is there that bubbles up, and we sort of act on that, and we live our lives like that. So we can consciously change the mental modifications, which is vrittis, and thereby change the samskaras or tendencies. Now we don't have direct access to the samskaras or the reservoir of tendencies, but we do have direct access to the mental modifications or vrittis. So as these vrittis or mental modifications come up to the conscious level, we just become aware of it, and before it takes hold of us, before it becomes strong, before we act on it, it's still fresh and weak. And at that time, what we do is we just observe the thought and not act or suppress. So that's very important. We just observe it without labeling. So right now, I am talking about how to deal with negative thoughts or this pattern of thoughts, this cycle that I just spoke about. So first of all, you have to create distance between you and these thoughts. Don't identify with them. Thoughts are thoughts. You are not your thoughts. They come, you are aware. They go, you are aware. So just allow all thoughts to come, and you are just a spectator. We do this in our meditation practice every week, in the awareness part of the thoughts. So you can join us every week and you will get a taste of it, what I'm talking about, just experientially. Now, your mind is trying to intellectualize, but if you do with us or, sit down with meditation, you will actually experience this firsthand, and that will make a big impact on, and this will all make sense. So don't try to control negative thoughts or stop it. You just become aware when the negative thoughts come. You just watch them like a movie. You listen to the content and let it go. Don't be attached to the negative thoughts. They are just thoughts, not you. So try to be impartial, unbiased towards it. Now, this quality will increase with more meditation practice. So, just notice that something is there in the mind, it's coming and it's going. Don't give it any label. Don't label it as good thought, bad thought, positive, negative, or pleasant, unpleasant. Don't attach any label to it. Just see that the thought is there, understand when it has come, and just be a very attentive watcher. And when you do this, what will happen is, as you start repeating, this will weaken the thought, whichever has come up, as it sinks back into that reservoir. And the tendencies of negative thought then starts getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So to summarize the steps or this exercise to deal with thought or negative thought patterns. Step 1, thought just bubbles up from within. And, from this reservoir of tendencies. Step 2, thought comes into your awareness. Your mind notices it. Step 3, now this is a very important step where you watch and know that the thought is there. You don't get attached, you don't label the thought, you just observe it. You are just aware. Step 4, thought stays for a while if you don't give into it, and it automatically goes away, and then it weakens that tendency or that samskara. Step 5, let's say you do give into that thought and it causes you a certain emotion like a stress or discomfort. Then you go back to step 3, where you stop, identify with that thought, and you keep repeating until you have stopped identifying with that thought. Also, just as it's important to put a space between you and the thought so that you can observe it without having any reaction to it, the same applies for feelings and emotions. So just remind yourself that whatever negative emotion you feel, it's totally fine. The emotion is simply a reflection of your thought or belief. So, it's the same process. You should do exactly the same. Just try to watch the emotion from a distance so that you are better able to observe it and you don't react to it. So, by following the steps or this technique, slowly we can reprogram, change the inner conditionings. And it's easy to say that and not so easy to do it. And with my own personal experience, what I think is what is required and enables to do it is a calm and a meditative mind. If the mind is not little calm, if it's not reflective, if it's not introspective, what will happen is, before you know, these negative tendencies, they have just bubbled up and just take over the mind. And it just happens. It's because you have this auto program running. So we have patterns of thinking, and we think thousands of thoughts every day. And if you look at it, these thoughts are not original or different or new. Mostly they are the same kind of thoughts, just repeating. So let's become aware of our thought patterns and put a little distance between yourself and the thoughts, or your mind. So just remember, you are not the mind. So if there's one lesson that you should take away from this talk, is that we are not our mind, our minds. We are the knowers, the witness of our minds. And in my awareness, the mind functions. Thoughts come, stay, and they disappear. And it's like our body is an instrument, and the mind is like an app or collection of apps. So you can use it as you want, and normally we don't seem to think like that, because it just takes over us, because we have given it power. And the way to take control of the mind is to first become calm and put little distance between yourself and the mind psychologically, and then try this process. At first, it will be struggle. It will be difficult, but worthwhile. Over time, it will change. Absolutely. Just be patient, be easy on yourself, and be disciplined. There's this verse in the Gita. It says, the mind alone is your worst enemy and is your best friend. So the uncontrolled mind is your worst enemy, and the controlled mind is your best friend. So I'm going to end this video by this verse or sentence that I heard from Swamiji. And it goes like this: the mind in its own place can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. So what does that mean? The mind by itself, doesn't matter what your external circumstances are, how bad it is, it can be transformed into a heaven by the mind, just by the attitude, the way the mind reacts to those circumstances. And no matter how good one's circumstances are, it can be transformed into a hell by an uncontrolled mind. So that said, be really patient with yourself. This whole practice is completely new way of using your mind, and it is going to take some practice. So be very easy on yourself. I hope you can take away something from this video. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thank you very much for watching. Love you all. Bye bye.